Thanks for coming.
It's obviously been a long year, a little bit tough year, but there's been some bright spots, and it was good. Always good to beat the Bears, so I appreciate you guys. There's probably going to be some questions you guys want to talk about that we're not going to, talk about to the off season, but I appreciate it anyways.
Do you think you need a more consistent look at Jordan in game action before you make the decision on his option, or do you have a good idea about what you have in him before you do make that call?
No, we're really pleased with his progression, and what he's been able to do. I think that it would be really good for him, the growth that you need to go through, seeing things for the first time, making those mistakes that you need to make. But I think from our end of it, we've seen what we need to see.
Brian, do you want Aaron back next year, or is that something that you just don't decide till the off season?
Well, certainly that's an off season kind of decision, but surely, yeah, we want all our guys back. And, we made a big commitment to him this off season, and so that was obviously, something that was really important to us. But like we've talked about in the past, this is something we'll sit down with him after the season, and it'll be something we do together and move forward that way.
He had said last night after the game that, there has to be mutual interest, so I assume he was, mentioning if you guys are interested in him.
Yeah, it is mutual, right? On his part too. So, I think, like I said, he's, what he's been able to do here and play through what he's played through the past 6, 7, 8 games, whatever it is. He's a tough son of a gun now. And so, but again, I think with what he's accomplished here, what he's done for this organization, that is certainly something that we'll sit down together and work through as we get through the offseason. But those are off-season, questions.
You had a pretty big decision to make this past offseason of kind of a fork in the road, whether or not you're going to extend Aaron or start a rebuild. With how the season's gone, 5-8, not going to make the playoffs, is there any regret in the decision and the way that you took?
Yeah, I don't think I looked at it as like a fork in the road, like we were going to have to tear it down and rebuild or anything like that. So, but no regrets, no, not at all. I think obviously heading into the season, being the number 1 seed the last 2 seasons, leading into this season, a lot of high hopes, right? We were certainly expected to be competing for a championship, and we are still in it. So if we were able to dig our way back into this thing, we still kind of feel like we have the ability to do that. But this season has not gone as we expected. But I think back then when we made those decisions, certainly we were looking at a different outcome right now.
How does that happen, Brian? You've been around the league long enough to know that nothing's promised. So obviously you came off 3 great seasons in a row. Mm-hmm. You're expecting the same, obviously. What happened?
I think every season's new, right? Every season's different. I think you can't ever really completely count on what you had the season before carrying over to the next season. And I think obviously we had some moving pieces, some different things heading into the season. It's just taken us a little while to gel. But I do think that there's been some really positive signs of late, and we just got to continue to be more consistent. But I just think, it's every season is new. Every team, no matter how talented, has to come together. They have to kind of, go through that early part of the season and find kind of their identity a little bit, and I think it's taken us a little while.
Can I ask a dumb question?
No.
Well, I'm going to anyway. So, why is it important to win these games? You're a super long shot to make the playoffs. If you were to lose these games, not intentionally losing them, but let's go throw the young guys in there. You get those guys some experience. You might get a top 5 draft pick, which you guys haven't had the luxury. I guess from your perspective, why is it important to win these games?
I think it's a culture thing. I think winning is a culture thing, and I think this doesn't. I don't think we ever roll out there on a Sunday or I guess Monday, Thursday, whatever it is nowadays, without the intention of winning. This place has a long history. Accomplishing that, winning this franchise of all time was kind of cool yesterday, and rightly so. And I just think that's what this place has always been about, and at least while I'm here, it's always going to be.
Brian, have you expressed to Rodgers that if he wants to play, that you want him back? I'm just trying to figure out why he would have said what he said yesterday.
Yeah, that's probably a better question for him. But no, we talk. We haven't really talked about those things. We don't talk about those things during the season very often. We just talk more about our team when we speak. Certainly that'll be something we get to when we get out. But again, we went through something in the offseason where it was a very big commitment on our part. It wasn't certainly for 1 year. So, but no, we don't. We really haven't any conversations about that stuff during the season.
You said that you've seen enough from Jordan. He's played 1 game in 3 quarters basically in his career. Why is that? Why have you seen enough?
Yeah, I just think he's had, I think obviously we've seen him for 3 years in practice and doing the things that he's doing. I think, there was a stretch here while Aaron's been banged up where he's had a lot of reps with the ones. I think it was great for him. I think that was just, it was great for us to see, but it was also just really, really good for him and experience, game planning each week. And again, I think quarterbacks got to get into this league, play a bunch of games before they learn how to win. But I do think we feel very confident that Jordan can move the ball, score points, and do the things that we ask of our quarterbacks. So
You feel confident at this point with what you've seen that he is a starting level quarterback in
I
the
do.
league?
Yeah. Now again, those guys, you got to go out and do it in real games and all that. And I think that's important. But all young quarterbacks go through a period of time where no matter what individual success, I think it takes them a little bit of time to learn how to win in this league, and that's going to be important for Jordan whenever he gets his opportunity. But that's a big part of it. It's learning within the game is very important for that development.
Aaron also said something, Brian, about, he'd be open to conversation if you guys do get eliminated by one way or another, to allow Jordan to get some of those reps before the season is out. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think, obviously if we get to that point, we'll kind of look at those things. But I think no matter, even if we're eliminated from the playoffs, which it wouldn't be ideal, I said we're going to still go out to win the game, right? I think that's really important. There's a bunch of guys in that locker room that deserve that. So we're going to go out to win the game. We're going to make the decisions that are in the best interest of us going and winning the game.
Do you want to see him win a game?
For sure. I'd like, whoever's playing, you know what I mean? So it's one of those things. It's as long as, I think whoever gives us the best chance to win needs to be out there. That's only fair to this locker room. That's the way I feel about it. I think Matt feels the same. So, there's always kind of, different ways to look at things. But football is a little bit different game than some others. We'll make those decisions when we get there, what's best for the football team and going out and winning those games.
How did you approach the trade deadline, and was there an opportunity that was missed to give this team more ammunition on the offensive side, especially a receiver? Did you see an opportunity for that?
There was lots of I don't know what you call them. There wasn't really any opportunities that presented themselves that made any sense. There was a lot of conversation, and there was a lot of things that, hey, this might help us. But it's like anything. I think you have to have a walkaway point, and when those prices became certain prices, we walked away.
What happened to this defense?
Yeah, I think certainly we've had our struggles as of late. I thought there were some good things last night, and we got some turnovers, which was important. I think there's it's never one thing. It's always a bunch of different things, and I think. I thought early in the season there were some really strong flashes of three and outs and different kind of things. We weren't generating a lot of turnovers early, and then we just kind of got into a stretch where we weren't playing as well as I think we can. Again, I've seen some growth over the past few weeks in different areas. It's just the consistency part is what's been a little frustrating.
Brian, for lack of a better term, the Devontae production replacement plan, do you just think it's kind of gotten derailed through, the injuries to Christian and Romeo and how much you might have missed out by not seeing a few more snaps with those guys?
Yeah, that's probably fair. I think when you're a rookie, you've got so much on your plate to begin with. And then when the injury things come in, it's that much more. And I think it takes time to develop trust within the offense and to gel. And when you're not out there, it just makes it that much more difficult. So that's probably fair.
Ryan, what have you thought, though, of the stretch that Christian's been on? And with his utilization, is this what you sort of saw when you looked at him in terms of the different things he can do for this offense?
Yeah, you got to give that kid a lot of credit because obviously the way the season started, going into camp with the surgery, and then kind of having to miss that time, and then just kind of falling behind and because of different injuries and stuff. I think a lot of guys that would have been it, right? And hey, let's get to the next season and see how it goes. But I give him a lot of credit for not losing faith and not losing his work ethic, because when the opportunities presented themselves, obviously he's made the most of them. So, I think that the thing I'm most proud about with Christian right now is just I think he really has a desire to be great, and he's not walking around here like he's arrived in any way. I think he truly wants to be the best version of himself that he can be, and he knows there's still a lot of work out there for him, but. I think it's always exciting to see when young players finally get opportunities, them being prepared and ready to make contributions. And you got to give our coaching staff a lot of credit there as well, because when those opportunities presented themselves, he was ready and he took advantage of it. And Rome did early in the season as well.
we talked about it at the time of the draft, the unusual nature of that trade. Do you have a bit of a sigh of relief to see him doing so well in that light of having shipped a couple picks to a rival for that?
I always have a sigh of relief when our players do well, but no, I don't necessarily, we kind of move forward. I'm not really looking back and all that. I'm just really happy for the player and for Christian. He's done a heck of a job on his own, fighting through some of these things and just being prepared for his opportunities. And it's not easy making it in this league, especially as a young player and coming in with a quarterback who has a standard that is so high, And so those guys have been fighting really hard to get to that standard, and to see that kind of come to the other side of it's kind of really nice to see.
On what you've seen, what got into him? Because it sounds like Rodgers and even LaFleur were saying that there weren't a lot of signs early on in the season with the injuries and everything that this was coming, and I don't know if anyone could have predicted this, but what's been the difference between what you saw first 9 weeks and the past month?
I think it's just really opportunity, I think, and that's usually what it comes down to for a lot of players. Especially young players, is having opportunity to go out there in games and make their mistakes and still get to the other side of it. Still get the opportunities once they make those mistakes. And with Christian, he's not been perfect, but he had some opportunities, didn't go his way, but he never, he just kept moving forward, kept fighting forward. And I think that's kind of a great lesson for all of our players, is that it's never going to be perfect. You're going to have some mistakes, but if you keep moving forward and keep grinding, when the opportunities do start to fall your way again, then you got to be ready for it.
Brian, if Christian and Romeo can get on the field together at the same time, it hasn't been a lot. What kind of, long term, how good of a combination do you think those two guys can be, and how would that stress defenses, down the road?
Yeah, I think, when you throw Samari in there as well, I think he's done a heck of a job as well. It's just, it would be nice to get all those guys, out there at the same time and getting opportunities. But, obviously Alan and Kabi and even Sammy have done some good things for us too. So it's a little bit of a crowded room, but I do think I'm very high on those guys' ceilings and what they could do as a group.
I don't know what Mark called it, the Devontae replacement plan. Was there more to that plan? Like, did you try, whether it was during the draft or leading into training camp or at the end of training camp, did you want a little more experience? So as your 3 draft picks went through their growing pains, that you had other options, or were you kind of liking what you had as soon as you got done with the draft?
Well, I think we kind of did that. Obviously, Randall came back, Alan brought back, and Sammy went and got. So I think we brought some experience in the room that wasn't in the room prior, right? It wasn't in the room. We didn't have them under contract, right? So we brought those guys back, and that was important. We look at, as you guys know, our process is to look at a lot of different things when those things become available. And we certainly, whether it was in the draft last year, through training camp and the trade deadline and all those things, we looked at a lot of different things. And, you always weigh the how that's going to affect your club. Like if you bring in a player from the outside, and how that's going to affect the room itself, and the opportunities those guys get as well. So we looked at all that, and certainly if the right guy was there for the right price, we would have done that, but it never materialized.
So, like Matt was talking about, looking at play calls that he makes, and wishing he'd done something different. From a GM's perspective, it's not like these guys the coaches are breaking down film and saying, "Oh, I should have called this." When you look at some of the decisions you've made, how do you kind of assess? I know you're not gonna think back on them and, gosh, I wish I would have done this. But at the same time, do you look at the Devontae thing and think?
Hindsight's always 20/20. I think you never really know if you're talking about bringing outside players in here. You never know how they're going to, just because they flourish somewhere else doesn't mean they're going to flourish here. You never really know that. But I assess us that we're 5-8. That's at the end of the day, that's what matters. But yeah, you always study, I think, the things that in the past, just to kind of, I think that's always important. But you can't dwell on it too much. You got to keep moving forward.
I'm just curious, because you look at Christian and you look at Romeo. It looks like you picked 2 really good players, and Samari could be as well. But you never had a situation where rookies had to come in and do what they've had to do right away, right? Like when Devontae was a rookie, you already had Jordy and Randall. When Jordy was a rookie, you already had Jennings and Driver. And I'm just wondering, you know, you get a deal done with 17 before the 2021 season, and now you've suddenly got the best receiver in football, and you got these young guys who are developing at their pace. And
Yeah, but we probably wouldn't have those young guys. You know what I mean? It's easy to go back and say
don't think
that.
so? Why
No,
wouldn't
I think it, you know, it's like anything. I mean, it changes the dynamics of what you think you might need. You know, right? And again, there was money and draft picks involved in those things that really kind of didn't make a lot of sense to us. Devontae's a great player, and you know, certainly keeping him around here was a priority for us. But once we realized that's not what he wanted, and we weren't going to be able to get a deal done, it was really just a matter of we could franchise him, and there was then that became, you know, a whole different set of decisions we weren't going to be able to do. So, yeah, I mean, again, I don't spend too much time looking back there. Whenever you lose a player the caliber of Tay, you know, you're going to have to overcome it. I mean, you're going to have to like do different things to overcome it. And I think we struggled out of the gate to do that. But at the same time, I think you know, that room particularly looks pretty bright moving forward.
What will you do this offseason if a team calls and wants to trade for Jordan Love?
Those are hypotheticals, and we'll kind of see where we are at that point. You know, I mean, you know, who knows? I mean, we're really excited about Jordan, you know, and where he's going, where he's developing. Like I said, we'll get to the offseason and we'll work all through that.
You're asked about what happened on defense, and obviously it hasn't reached expectations. But if you look on paper, I mean, across the board, there's guys that are known. There's talented names, and just about none of them are having their best years. Where do you think the disconnect is there? Is that coaching? How's that happen across the board?
I think it's never one thing. You know, as you know, I mean, it's never one thing. I think, and I've said this before up here, like we do have a lot of talented guys on defense. But they got to come together as a team, you know, and that takes some sacrifice on their part as well as everybody in this building to be. If you're going to be a good team, you're going to be a good unit, and there's a lot that goes into that. Again, we got a lot of season left. You know, we got 4 games that are really important to us around here. You know, and I expect those guys to continue working towards that.
Is it hard to operate as an organization when after the season you don't know if your starting quarterback is going to be back and you're stuck wondering whether he's going to return or not?
Repeat that again. Is it hard to?
Is it hard to operate as an organization that after the season you have to have these conversations with your starting quarterback and you're left wondering if he's going to return?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think, again, we're fortunate to have two really good quarterbacks, and as we move into that time period, we'll make those decisions as we go. But as I've been taught from the time I walked into this building, whatever comes with having great quarterbacks, it's worth it. So,
Brian, looking at next year, is the risk worth the reward with Bakhtiari? And what I mean by that is, like, as we saw before the Washington game, he can wake up any day and his knee's not feeling good enough to play. Forget the appendix stuff. Yeah. You guys also have other guys who can play left tackle pretty well, but when he is healthy, he's pretty darn good. Can you afford to keep a guy who presents that risk at the salary you would have to?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Back's been through a tough stretch here, right? You know, I mean, he actually, you know, as he got through the beginning of the season, he went through a stretch of games. That Thursday night game coming off a Sunday night, you know, Sunday game, and where I thought he played really, really well, and it was holding up really well. And obviously, you know, just snake bit with the appendectomy and what he's going through right now. But he's playing at a very, very high level. Left tackles don't, you know, grow on trees, and we've had some guys fill in excellent for him. I mean, Zach Tom coming in and doing what he's done as a rookie. And some of the last minute fires he's been thrown into has been pretty impressive. So, but again, another off-season decision. We'll try to get through all that stuff and see how everything fits. There's so many things that are interdependent on each other, but you know, again, he's playing at a really, really high level for us.
Hey, Goody, just procedurally, because I don't always know about the flow chart here. Does Matt have full autonomy over the coaching staff, or is that something that you, Russ, Matt, and Mark all talk about? How does that procedurally work?
You know, Matt has, you know, Mike can hire him. That's his decision completely. You know, but we are, you know, Russ, Murph, and I are all supportive of whatever we support him in whatever ways we can. But those are his decisions.